A system of racial segregation. The genesis of apartheid in South Africa. The year 1948 marked a turning point in South African history, as the National Party, led by D.F. Malan, came to power and implemented a system of institutionalized racial segregation known as apartheid. This system, which lasted for nearly 5 decades, had a profound and lasting impact on the lives of millions of South Africans, creating a deeply divided society and a legacy of inequality and injustice. Apartheid, an Afrikaans word meaning separateness, was a comprehensive system of racial discrimination that aimed to maintain white minority rule and control over the country's resources. The National Party, which had campaigned on a platform of Afrikaner nationalism and racial segregation, used its electoral victory to codify and expand existing discriminatory practices into a rigid legal framework. The foundations of apartheid can be traced back to the early days of European settlement in South Africa. The Dutch East India Company established a colony at the Cape of Good Hope in 1652, and over the following centuries, European settlers, primarily from the Netherlands and Britain, gradually expanded their control over the territory. The indigenous African population was dispossessed of their land and subjected to various forms of discrimination and exploitation. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, a series of laws and policies were enacted to further entrench white supremacy and racial segregation. The Native Land Act of 1913 restricted African land ownership to designated reserves, while the Mines and Works Act of 1911, and the Industrial Conciliation Act of 1924 excluded Africans from skilled jobs and trade unions. These laws and policies created a system of economic and social inequality that disadvantaged Africans and benefited the white minority. The National Party's victory in 1948 marked a significant escalation in the implementation of racial segregation. The new government introduced a series of laws and policies that systematically discriminated against non-white South Africans. The Population Registration Act of 1950 classified all South Africans into racial categories, while the Group Areas Act of 1950 enforced residential segregation by assigning different racial groups to specific areas. The Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act of 1949 and the Immorality Act of 1950 outlawed interracial marriage and sexual relations, further entrenching the racial divide. The Bantu Authorities Act of 1951 established a system of separate homelands for different African ethnic groups, effectively stripping them of their South African citizenship. The implementation of apartheid had a devastating impact on the lives of non-white South Africans. They were denied basic rights and freedoms, including the right to vote, freedom of movement, and access to education and health care. They were forced to live in overcrowded and impoverished townships, with limited opportunities for economic advancement. The apartheid regime also resorted to brutal repression to maintain its control, including the Sharpeville massacre in 1960, where police opened fire on peaceful protesters, killing 69 people. The international community condemned apartheid as a crime against humanity, and over time, growing internal and external pressure led to its eventual dismantling. The release of Nelson Mandela from prison in 1990 and the subsequent negotiations between the African National Congress and the National Party paved the way for the transition to a democratic, non-racial South Africa. In 1994, the country held its first free and fair elections, and Nelson Mandela was elected as the country's first black president. The legacy of apartheid continues to haunt South Africa today. The country still grapples with the deep-rooted social and economic inequalities that were created and perpetuated by the apartheid regime. The process of reconciliation and healing is ongoing, as the nation strives to build a more just and equitable society for all its citizens. The establishment of apartheid in South Africa was a dark chapter in the country's history, marked by institutionalized racism, discrimination, and oppression. Its impact on the lives of millions of South Africans was devastating, and its legacy continues to shape the country's social and political landscape. A pillar of Western security. The creation of NATO. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, established in 1949, is a testament to the collective determination of Western nations to safeguard their security and democratic values in the face of the burgeoning Soviet threat during the Cold War. The creation of NATO marked a pivotal moment in post-World War II history, solidifying the alliance between North America and Western Europe and providing a framework for collective defense and cooperation that endures to this day. The genesis of NATO can be traced back to the aftermath of the Second World War, as the geopolitical landscape of Europe underwent a dramatic transformation. The Soviet Union, having emerged as a superpower alongside the United States, sought to expand its influence in Eastern Europe, establishing communist regimes in countries like Poland, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia. This expansionist policy, coupled with the Soviet Union's vast military capabilities, raised alarm bells in Western capitals, particularly in the United States and the United Kingdom. In response to the growing Soviet threat, Western leaders began to explore the idea of a collective defense alliance. The Brussels Treaty, signed in 1948 by Belgium, France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom, laid the groundwork for such an alliance, but it was limited in scope and lacked the military might to deter Soviet aggression. The North Atlantic Treaty, signed in Washington, D.C. on April 4, 1949, marked the formal establishment of NATO. The treaty's 12 founding members, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States pledged to come to the aid of any member state that was attacked. This principle of collective defense, enshrined in Article 5 of the treaty, became the cornerstone of NATO's security architecture. The creation of NATO was met with mixed reactions. Some critics argued that it would exacerbate tensions with the Soviet Union and lead to a new arms race. Others questioned the effectiveness of a collective defense alliance, given the vast disparities in military capabilities among the member states. However, proponents of NATO argued that it was essential to deter Soviet aggression and ensure the security of Western Europe. In the decades that followed, NATO played a crucial role in maintaining peace and stability in Europe. The alliance served as a deterrent to Soviet aggression, preventing a direct military confrontation between the two superpowers. NATO also provided a forum for political consultation and cooperation among its member states, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked a turning point for NATO. With the disappearance of its primary adversary, the alliance had to redefine its mission and adapt to a new security environment. NATO expanded its membership to include former Warsaw Pact countries like Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic, and it engaged in peacekeeping operations in the Balkans and Afghanistan. In recent years, NATO has faced new challenges, including the rise of Russia as a revisionist power and the threat of terrorism. The alliance has responded by strengthening its collective defense capabilities, increasing its presence in Eastern Europe, and enhancing its cooperation with partner countries. The creation of NATO in 1949 was a watershed moment in the history of the Cold War. It marked the beginning of a new era of collective security and cooperation among Western nations. NATO's role in deterring Soviet aggression and maintaining peace in Europe cannot be overstated. Today, NATO remains a vital pillar of Western security, adapting to new challenges and evolving to meet the needs of its member states. The fracturing of a nation and the Taiwan question. The 1949 Chinese Communist Revolution. The year 1949 marked a watershed moment in Chinese history, as the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, led by Mao Zedong, emerged victorious from a protracted civil war and established the People's Republic of China, the PRC. This momentous event not only transformed the political and social landscape of China but also had far-reaching consequences for the geopolitical balance of power in Asia and the world. The establishment of the PRC also led to the relocation of the Republic of China, the ROC, led by Chiang Kai-shek, to the island of Taiwan, creating a complex and enduring cross-strait relationship that continues to shape regional dynamics to this day. The Chinese Communist Revolution was the culmination of a decades-long struggle between the CCP and the Nationalist Party, or Kuomintang, KMT. The two parties had initially formed a united front against Japanese aggression during the Second World War, but their ideological differences and conflicting visions for China's future eventually led to a resumption of hostilities after the war. The CCP, with its strong grassroots support and military prowess, gradually gained the upper hand, while the KMT, weakened by corruption and internal divisions, suffered a series of military defeats. By 1949, the CCP had effectively taken control of most of mainland China, while the KMT retreated to Taiwan, where it established a government in exile. On October 1, 1949, Mao Zedong proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China in Tiananmen Square, marking the beginning of a new era in Chinese history. The PRC adopted a socialist model of development, characterized by centralized planning, collectivization of agriculture, and nationalization of industry. The new government also embarked on a series of social reforms, aimed at improving the lives of ordinary Chinese citizens, including land redistribution, literacy campaigns, and healthcare initiatives. The establishment of the PRC had profound implications for the global balance of power. The Cold War rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union intensified, as both superpowers sought to influence the newly established communist regime. The PRC initially aligned itself with the Soviet Union, receiving economic and military aid from its communist neighbor. However, ideological differences and competing national interests eventually led to a Sino-Soviet split in the 1960s, further complicating the geopolitical landscape. The relocation of the ROC to Taiwan created a complex and enduring cross-strait relationship that continues to be a source of tension and instability in the region. The ROC, with its own government, military, and economic system, initially claimed to be the sole legitimate government of China, while the PRC asserted its sovereignty over Taiwan and vowed to reunify the island with the mainland, by force if necessary. The two sides engaged in a series of military clashes in the 1950s and 1960s, but a tacit understanding of maintaining the status quo eventually emerged. The cross-strait relationship has undergone significant changes in recent decades, with growing economic and cultural ties between Taiwan and mainland China. However, the fundamental political differences remain unresolved, and the possibility of a military conflict cannot be entirely ruled out. The issue of Taiwan's status continues to be a sensitive and contentious issue, with implications for regional security and stability. The Chinese Communist Revolution of 1949 was a pivotal event that shaped the course of Chinese history and had far-reaching consequences for the world. The establishment of the People's Republic of China, and the relocation of the Republic of China to Taiwan created a divided China, with two distinct political and social systems. The cross-strait relationship remains a complex and challenging issue, with potential implications for regional peace and security. A nation divided by ideology and geopolitics. The establishment of East and West Germany. The year 1949 marked a significant turning point in German history, as the nation, defeated and occupied after the Second World War, was formally divided into two separate states: the Federal Republic of Germany, the FRG, in the west, and the German Democratic Republic, or GDR, in the east. This division, a direct consequence of the escalating Cold War tensions between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union, had profound and lasting implications for the German people and the geopolitical landscape of Europe. The roots of Germany's division can be traced back to the Yalta Conference in 1945, where the victorious Allied powers, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union, agreed to divide Germany into 4 occupation zones, each administered by one of the Allied powers. Berlin, the former capital, was also divided into 4 sectors, despite being located deep within the Soviet zone. The initial intention was for the occupation to be temporary, and for a unified German government to be established. However, the growing ideological and geopolitical rivalry between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union soon derailed these plans. The Western Allies, alarmed by the Soviet Union's imposition of communist regimes in Eastern Europe, sought to rebuild and integrate West Germany into the Western Bloc. They introduced currency reforms in their zones, merged their sectors into a unified economic area, and encouraged the development of democratic institutions. In response, the Soviet Union tightened its grip on East Germany, establishing a communist regime under the Socialist Unity Party of Germany, or SED, and implementing a centrally planned economy. The division of Germany became official on May 23, 1949, with the proclamation of the Federal Republic of Germany in the west and the German Democratic Republic in the east. The FRG, with its capital in Bonn, adopted a parliamentary democracy and a market economy, aligning itself with the Western Bloc. The GDR, with its capital in East Berlin, became a socialist state, integrated into the Soviet-led Eastern Bloc. The division of Germany had profound consequences for the German people. Families and communities were torn apart, as the Iron Curtain descended across the country, restricting movement and communication between East and West. The economic disparity between the two states widened, with West Germany experiencing an economic miracle, while East Germany struggled under a centrally planned economy. The political systems also diverged, with West Germany becoming a prosperous and stable democracy, while East Germany remained a repressive one-party state. The division of Berlin, a microcosm of the larger German division, became a focal point of Cold War tensions. The Berlin blockade of 1948 to 1949, in which the Soviet Union attempted to cut off West Berlin from the Western Allies, was a major crisis that nearly escalated into war. The construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961, a physical barrier that sealed off West Berlin from the surrounding East German territory, further solidified the division of the city and became a symbol of the Cold War. The division of Germany lasted for over 4 decades, shaping the lives of millions of Germans and the course of European history. It was a period marked by political tension, economic disparity, and social upheaval. However, the desire for reunification remained strong among the German people, and the collapse of the Soviet Union finally paved the way for the reunification of Germany on October 3, 1990. The creation of East and West Germany in 1949 was a defining moment in German history, a consequence of the Cold War rivalry between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union. The division of Germany had a profound and lasting impact on the German people and the geopolitical landscape of Europe, shaping the course of events for decades to come. The reunification of the country in 1990 marked the end of this chapter in German history. But its legacy continues to resonate in the collective memory of the German people, and the broader context of European integration. In the next chapter, we will examine the Soviet atomic bomb project, and the outbreak of war in Korea.